Welcome to another episode of PPL Pod. Uh, Picture a college student in Houston, right? She's studying healthcare administration, and she's quietly writing raps to her mother's old instrumental tracks.
Just a completely normal, everyday college experience.
Right, exactly. But then within just a few years, she doesn't just become this global music icon and a Grammy winner. She also has to survive a traumatic shooting, battle this completely relentless internet smear campaign, and literally fight her own record label just to be independent.
And then somehow emerges as a self-made mogul and a Broadway star by 2026.
Yeah, it's wild. Imagine sitting in a courtroom, right, listening to your own trauma being mocked by millions of people online to the point where you actually testify that you wish you hadn't survived.
It's heavy. It is incredibly heavy.
It is. But then imagine walking out of that same courtroom, wiping your tears, and building a multi-million-dollar empire, completely rewriting the rules of the entire music industry.
It's an absolutely unbelievable trajectory. So today in this deep dive, we are unpacking the life, the trials, and really the sheer business acumen of Megan Thee.
Universally known to you and, well, the rest of the world as Megan Thee Stallion.
Right from the jump, we need to be clear. This isn't just some light story about a rapper who made some catchy hooks and viral dances.
No, not at all.
When you really look closely at the sources we've gathered, this is fundamentally a masterclass in fierce independence. It's an examination of the crushing pressures of sudden fame and this really deeply personal fight to protect your own narrative.
And her physical safety.
Exactly. Her physical safety as a Black woman in America.
So let's unpack this, because as I was going through all these materials, I just couldn't shake this feeling that her trajectory is, well, it's basically a superhero origin story.
Yeah, totally. 100%.
Right. But the thing is, her biggest battles aren't just against these traditional external villains. It's this constant, grueling fight to control her own identity, her own voice, and her power.
And to really understand this massive multimedia empire she built by 2026, you first have to understand the foundation. And that foundation was laid by her mother down in Houston, Texas.
The Houston roots. That is the bedrock of everything she does.
Yeah, so she was born in 1995. And her early childhood was shaped by really a combination of significant absence, but also this incredibly powerful female presence.
Because her father was in prison, right?
Right, for the first 8 years of her life. And then tragically, he passed away when she was just a freshman in high school. So she was primarily raised by her mother, Holly Thomas.
And Holly wasn't just your typical, stage mom pushing her kid into pageants or whatever. She was a rapper herself.
Yeah, she was known locally in Houston as Hollywood.
Which is such a great name. And this is where it gets really interesting to me. Because instead of dropping Megan off at, like, a standard daycare while she worked, Holly was taking her daughter straight into the recording sessions.
Yeah, just sitting right there in the studio.
Think about the mechanics of that. It is literally a masterclass in passive absorption. You have Megan sitting there, this quiet, observant kid, and she is just soaking up the rhythms, the studio etiquette, the vernacular of Houston hip-hop.
She's learning how an artist commands a room before she even knows algebra.
Exactly. And obviously that proximity sparked something.
Yeah.
By the time she was 14, the sources note she was actually stealing her mother's instrumental tracks and secretly writing her own raps over them.
But what's really fascinating here is the boundary her mother set. Because when Megan finally showed her mom what she could do at age 18, Holly was like, okay, you clearly have undeniable talent.
No.
But she gave her a strict, completely non-negotiable mandate. She said, you have to wait until you are 21 to pursue rap as a career.
Right, because her lyrics were already, incredibly sexually suggestive.
Very raw.
Yeah. So her mom was essentially acting as a shield, saying, you were way too young to be navigating the public scrutiny of talking like this. Which, that completely reframes how I view her early career. Well, you have to ask, was her mother forcing her to wait until she was 21 actually her secret weapon? Like a blessing in disguise?
Oh, that's an interesting point.
Because if you look at her trajectory, that incubation period gave her time. It allowed Megan to fully develop her unshakable confidence and these fearless alter egos before a boardroom of music executives could get their hands on her.
Before they could try to mold her into some marketable pop product.
Exactly.
If we connect this to the bigger picture of artist development, that waiting period was an absolute crucible. Because instead of being thrown into the industry machine as a teenager,
which destroys so many young artists.
it really does. But instead of that, she went to college. She went to Prairie View A&M University to study healthcare administration, and that campus, that is where she started going viral.
Not with a label's marketing budget, but just out in the real world.
Right, she was out in the campus courtyard stepping into ciphers. And for anyone listening who might not know, a cipher is this informal gathering where rappers stand in a circle and just take turns freestyling.
And she was stepping into these completely male-dominated ciphers and just absolutely dismantling her opponents.
Dismantling them.
I just love that visual, just a college student commanding a circle of her peers. And she commanded attention physically, too, which brings us to the actual name. She's 5'10", and in Southern slang, a stallion is a colloquialism for a tall, statuesque, thick woman.
So she took a word that people were already using to describe her body, and she weaponized it into a brand. Megan Thee Stallion.
It's brilliant. And she's also developing her alter egos during this time, like Tina Snow, which was this raw, unapologetically dominant persona that was really heavily influenced by Southern rap legends.
So she builds this armor, right? She builds her personas, and she graduates into her 20s as this fully formed, lethal artist. And then in early 2018, she officially signs with a Houston independent label called 1501 Certified Entertainment.
And that signing is just the match in the powder barrel. Because by 2019, she drops her mixtape, Fever. And suddenly, we are all living in a hot girl summer.
Oh man, hot girl summer.
It was inescapable. It wasn't just a song. It became this total cultural phenomenon.
Yeah, and it actually started as a meme from her fan base, you know, the hotties, and she defined it as women and men just unapologetically being themselves and having a good time.
But, and this is the brilliant business mechanism behind it, she didn't just let it be a funny internet joke. She actively went out and officially trademarked the phrase, hot girl summer.
Which points right back to that healthcare administration degree, right? She understood intellectual property.
Exactly.
But, you know, there's this massive, often overlooked context when we talk about this specific era, because if you contrast her public persona with her private reality at that exact time, it is jarring.
Yeah, it really is.
Because Hot Girl Summer was a brand built entirely on this carefree, bulletproof confidence. But privately, right as she was breaking through to global superstardom in early 2019, her mother, Holly, passed away from a brain tumor.
Oh, wow.
So Megan is out there projecting ultimate joy and strength while simultaneously navigating extreme, devastating grief.
That dichotomy, I mean, it just gives you a completely different level of respect for her resilience. And somehow the momentum just kept building. Because then in 2020, she releases her EP, Suga, which has a track on it called Savage.
And this is right at the start of the pandemic lockdowns.
Right. And a TikTok user named Kira Wilson creates a dance challenge for it. And the song just goes wildly, globally viral. Literally everyone sitting at home is doing the Savage dance.
And then comes the absolute crown jewel. She secures Beyonce on the Savage remix.
Which is huge.
The emotional weight of that cannot be overstated. Megan had idolized Beyonce, who is another Houston native, her entire life. So getting Houston royalty to co-sign her, it propelled Megan to her first #1 hit on the Billboard Hot 100.
And it fundamentally shifted her industry standing, right? She won a Grammy for Best New Artist. And you have to understand how rare that is. She was the first female hip-hop artist to win that specific award since Lauryn Hill did it in 1999.
Yeah, the industry traditionally just boxes female rappers out of that category, viewing them as too niche. Megan completely broke the mold.
And then she follows that up by featuring on Cardi B's WAP, which broke the record for the most streams for a song in its first week of release in U.S. history.
It's just an unbelievable run.
It is, but wait, I actually want to jump in here and push back on something.
Okay, what's that?
Well, I think about how we culturally remember this specific era of her rise. Because we keep talking about the TikTok dances and her signature tongue-out ad-lib and the viral memes. And I think that actually hurts her legacy a bit.
How do you mean?
Because it severely overshadows the fact that she is a technical powerhouse. Like, if you listen to her breath control, her specific cadence, she isn't just making catchy hooks for teenagers on an app.
Oh, absolutely.
She is heavily influenced by Southern hip-hop legends like Pimp C from UGK. You can hear that distinct, measured talk rap delivery. She is out-rapping her peers bar for bar.
I am so glad you brought that up, because the viral nature of her fame was really merely a vehicle for her technical prowess. It wasn't a replacement for it.
Right.
But unfortunately, this exact moment of ultimate exposure is where the story takes a really harrowing turn, because she reaches the absolute pinnacle with the Savage remix. She has Beyonce in her corner. The whole world is doing her dance. But fame, that massive, creates a dangerous level of exposure.
Yeah.
And that exposure turned nearly fatal in July 2020.
Right. The shooting.
Yes. The sources detail that on July 15th, 2020, Megan was in a vehicle with rapper Tory Lanez in the Hollywood Hills. And following an argument, she exited the car and was shot in both feet by Lanez. She actually had to undergo immediate surgery to remove the bullet fragments.
And initially, she was silent about who shot her. You read the sources, she was terrified of the police.
Which is important context.
It is. Because if you think about the cultural climate in the summer of 2020, right in the middle of these nationwide protests over police brutality, her fear makes complete logical sense. She didn't want a volatile situation with a firearm to escalate into a deadly police encounter. But when she did finally speak out and officially name Lanez as the shooter, the backlash she faced was, honestly, it was sickening.
It was a vicious, highly coordinated attack on her character. According to the reports, Lanez's team allegedly attempted this massive smear campaign. They used falsified emails to discredit her, basically trying to peddle a completely fabricated narrative to the press to make it look like she was lying.
Wow.
And furthermore, Megan confirmed that Lanez actually offered her hush money to stay quiet about the incident.
So just think about what is happening to her at this moment. It's like she was suddenly forced to be the CEO of her own crisis management firm.
Yeah.
She's defending herself in the court of public opinion. She's fighting off literal deepfakes and fake emails. She's watching her peers make jokes about her getting shot, all while simultaneously trying to physically rehabilitate her feet and recover from severe psychological trauma.
And how does she respond to all of that? She doesn't retreat. She wrote this searing op-ed for the New York Times titled, "Why I Speak Up for Black Women."
I remember that.
Yeah, and she didn't just talk about the shooting, she explained the underlying mechanics of misogynoir. She highlighted how Black women are constantly disrespected, unprotected, and disregarded by society. She took her deeply personal, agonizing pain and contextualized it within a much broader systemic failure.
But getting to actual justice was just agonizingly slow. The trial wasn't even until December 2022.
2.5 years later.
Right. And reading the transcripts from her testimony, it's just heartbreaking. She testified on the stand that the abuse, the gaslighting, and this relentless public mockery were so severe that she wished Lanez would have just shot and killed me.
Man.
Imagine the worst moment of your life being memed for millions of people to consume as entertainment.
It really raises an incredibly important question about the reality of being a victim in the digital age. The scrutiny is inescapable, but ultimately the jury saw through the disinformation. They convicted Lanez on 3 felony charges, and in August 2023, he was sentenced to 10 years in prison.
So she survived the physical violence, and she survived the digital gaslighting. But here is what makes her business acumen so staggering to me. While she was fighting for her physical safety and her narrative in her personal life, she was fighting this parallel high-stakes war for professional independence.
Exactly. So let's look at the mechanics of the music business here. Remember 1501 Certified Entertainment, that independent label she signed with back in 2018?
Yeah.
Well, by 2020, her management realized the initial contract she signed was heavily stacked against her. Megan admitted she didn't fully understand the legal verbiage when she signed it.
And honestly, if you've ever signed an employment contract or even a lease you didn't fully understand just because you're excited to get the opportunity, you can relate to how easily this happens.
Oh, absolutely. So when she tried to renegotiate for fair compensation, the label fought back hard. They legally attempted to block her from releasing any new music at all.
Which is what boasts the hashtag #FreeTheStallion movement online. But the legal technicalities the label used to try and trap her are just absurd. Take the 2021 compilation album she released, Something for the Hotties.
Right. This is where we need to explain how contract law gets weaponized in the music industry. To fulfill her contract and officially leave the label, she needed to deliver a specific number of albums.
Okay.
So she hands over Something for the Hotties, and the label turns around and says, "We refuse to count this as an album because it only contains 29 minutes of new material, and our legacy contract stipulates an album must be exactly 45 minutes long."
Unbelievable.
They were using this completely outdated industry metric to demand 2 more full projects just to let her go.
So what does she do? She sues them. And it's just lawsuit after lawsuit, injunction after injunction. She's online expressing severe emotional distress over just trying to put out her art. But finally, in October 2023, they reach a mutual settlement. She walks away.
She got out.
Yeah, but I want to pause here because we really need to explain how she actually forced a mutual settlement against a label that essentially held all the cards.
Oh.
She didn't just wait them out, right? She legally and publicly made herself radioactive to them.
Exactly. She leveraged her massive public platform to expose their practices. She made the PR nightmare and the mounting legal fees way more expensive for the label than simply letting her go.
Which is genius. But for our listeners, how rare is it in the modern music industry for an artist of Megan's massive magnitude to successfully break completely free from their original label and walk away owning their masters and their publishing?
It is exceptionally rare. And let's clarify what that actually means. Owning your masters means you own the actual original sound recordings of your songs.
Right.
Owning your publishing means you own the underlying musical composition, so the lyrics and the melody. Usually, artists of her size who want out of a bad deal are either bought out by a major label who then owns their masters under slightly better terms, or they spend a decade in court and their career momentum completely dies.
They just get shelved.
Yep. So for Megan to navigate out of that contract, retain full ownership of her catalog, and walk away as a completely independent entity, it means she, not a boardroom of executives, dictates how, when, and where her voice gets used for the rest of her life.
It is a massive legal and business triumph. And it really set the stage for her next era, the Renaissance.
Yeah.
Because having reclaimed her masters, her piece, and her narrative, Megan enters this era of total creative and personal liberation starting in 2024. She founds her own company, Hot Girl Productions, and signs a distribution deal with Warner Music.
Meaning she is the boss. They just distribute what she creates.
Exactly. And she proves the viability of that business model immediately. Her self-titled 2024 album, Megan, spawned the single Hiss. And this is a really crucial mechanism of her success. Hiss became her first solo #1 hit on the Billboard Hot 100.
Yeah, there were no features, no massive pop co-stars to carry the streaming numbers, just her raw rapping.
But of course, peace is never quite absolute in the music industry, because Hiss contained some lyrical wordplay that sparked a massive feud with Nicki Minaj. And the sources note that things got really dark, really fast.
Yeah, they did.
We're talking about Minaj's fans doxing the cemetery where Megan's mother is buried. And for those listening, doxing is when someone maliciously publishes private or identifying information about you on the internet. Releasing the location of her deceased mother's grave is just. It's an unimaginable invasion of privacy.
It is a stark reminder that the digital harassment she faces didn't just magically disappear with the Tory Lanez verdict. The internet is still a hostile place. But what's fascinating here is how she responds to the chaos now.
Right, she doesn't let it derail her business focus.
No, instead of getting bogged down in endless internet wars, she took her career on the road. Her independent Hot Girl Summer Tour grossed over $40 million.
That is wild. And I have to marvel at how multifaceted her interests are, too. She didn't just stay in the hip-hop lane. By 2026, she is expanding her empire like she's writing her own arc in her favorite anime, My Hero Academia.
I love that comparison.
Right. Think about how that works. In that show, the protagonist absorbs the powers and lessons of their mentors to defeat the villains. Megan absorbed her mother's studio etiquette, she absorbed Pimp C's breath control, and she used those powers to defeat the industry villains in the boardroom.
And after winning that boss battle, she levels up and expands her territory.
Exactly.
And the expansion is truly staggering when you look at the timeline. In 2025, she partners with the producer of The Boondocks to create and produce her own Prime Video anime series. She's leaning directly into her deep love for the genre and leveraging her independence to greenlight her own passion.
She's so cool.
And then she pivots to theater. She makes her Broadway debut in early 2026, replacing Bob the drag queen in the role of Zidler in Moulin Rouge, the musical.
From Houston courtyard ciphers to Broadway stages, I mean, you can't write a better script. And if that wasn't enough global reach, in June 2026, because she owns her own publishing and can clear her own music, she's featured on the official FIFA World Cup anthem, DNA, alongside Andrea Bocelli and David Guetta.
It's crazy, but through all this leveling up, through all the global expansion, she stays deeply rooted in Houston.
Yeah, the philanthropy.
Yes, her philanthropy is a core part of her identity, not just some PR add-on. She established the Pete and Thomas Foundation to honor her late parents, focusing heavily on education, housing, and health and wellness needs in underserved communities in Houston and beyond.
So she's giving out scholarships, helping with disaster relief.
Yeah, and actively fulfilling the dreams her mother had of providing assisted living facilities for the elderly.
It's such a beautiful full circle journey. So what does this all mean when we step back and look at the whole picture?
Well, if we connect this back to where we started, that tension of sudden fame and the battle for identity fame, gave Megan everything she dreamed of as a kid, sitting in the studio writing raps to her mom's beats.
But it came at a staggering, almost unbearable human cost.
Exactly. She lost her mother right as she was breaking through to the mainstream. She survived physical gun violence. She endured intense, bad faith public scrutiny, deepfakes, and betrayal.
But yet,
Yet the story of Megan Thee Stallion is ultimately about absolutely refusing to be a victim. It's about taking the darkest, most traumatic moments of her life and building an impenetrable, independent empire on top of them. She completely rewrote the rules of the music industry to become her own boss.
she really did. And it leaves you with something to really mull over long after this deep dive ends, with Megan seamlessly pivoting into independent ownership, Broadway starring roles, anime production, and international sports anthems. How will her blueprint change the way the next generation of artists define what a rapper can be? Thanks for listening to People Up Pod. Keep tuning in for more stories worth knowing.